Hi, Dr. King in class. I'm Savannah. You can call me Sav. I am a 36-year-old white, cisgendered, single, heterosexual woman. I grew up as the oldest of four kids in a low income single parent household, and I find myself a single mom of three boys now, though in a slightly better economic position than my mom was. I'm able bodied, but I do have mental health struggles that impact my daily life as a result of childhood trauma and losing my brother to suicide in 2015, as well as losing my dad to murder in 2018. I'm a first generation college student. I received my associates from Massasoit in 2020, and I look forward to receiving my bachelor's after the fall semester here. I work full time, I attend school full time, I volunteer with Cape Samaritans, and I run a very small feminist Facebook group. I know a lot of that information would be considered an overshare for a class introduction. However, it's the full picture of my experiences as a woman, and that provides my personal privilege grid. I believe that the first step in becoming an effective feminist is acknowledging the unique combination of advantages and disadvantages that we exist within. And I appreciate the intersectional framework that our text is based on because it's important to recognize that there are so many ways that our society and our legislation can oppress people based on their unique combination of experiences and status. And having the privilege to not feel all of that oppression should mean shouldering some of the burden of ending that oppression because none of us will have true equality and freedom until we all have true equality and freedom. But I was not always a self proclaimed feminist. It happened for me in stages as I grew and I learned my own values and I learned about myself. I actually dreamed of having a life like my grandmother's. I wanted to raise a bunch of kids and be the sole provider of meals and tidiness and emotional labor, and I wanted to defer to my husband for all of life's major decisions. And then I got married, and I realized that that life was not only unfulfilling for me, but it was oppressive. I know now that that's something that Betty Friedan studied in The Feminine Mystique, and that that has been credited as kickstarting the second wave of feminism, but I didn't know that then. And I was not ready to call myself a feminist. It was actually my misconceptions about the second wave of feminism that stopped me from doing so. I had this idea in my head that feminists could not be feminine and they could not receive any joy from their domestic duties, and I also was pretty sure that I had nothing left to fight for. I had just divorced my husband, got a job, opened a bank account, and found my own apartment without any major struggles. So I bought into that post feminist idea that we talk about in chapter one, that everything was fine and equality had been achieved. And that stuck with me for a really long time. But I navigated things like rape culture and sexualization and gender bias and microaggressions and mansplaining with this attitude of boys will be boys and this is just the way things are without ever realizing what these things were or what they meant until my first sociology class in college. And that's when I began to understand that these experiences were not unique to me, and more importantly, that they were not without consequence to women everywhere. And then once I was able to kind of wrap my head around my privilege and how that protected me from some of these things, everything kind of clicked. And I thought a lot about what the experiences for women who didn't have any of my privileged statuses might be like. And then I began to explore the ways that societal expectations of men left them at a disadvantage as well. There's a great book on this called For the Love of Men. And I knew that I had cycles to break. Today, I consider myself a radical, liberal, socialist feminist. I fully admit that I don't know if it's okay to put myself in all three categories at once, but my personal brand of feminism is about changing the legislation that disempowers women, which is extremely important right now as we see states passing these very aggressive anti abortion laws, as well as breaking down the patriarchal social structures that reinforce gender stereotypes and rape culture, all while also addressing the misogynistic power structures that disproportionately distribute access to wealth to white men. It was nice to read in our text that it's important to learn where we've been in feminism. That's actually the exact approach that I've been taking lately. I've been studying first and second wave feminism just to see what's worked and to help inspire the ways that I can make changes today. And for the record, I do agree with our text that the waves analogy sort of implies that things have started and stopped, and I don't think that's ever really been the case. But I'd like to wrap up by saying that I really appreciate our intersectional framework because it is nice to know that we all have something unique to bring to this discussion. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you to hear your perspectives. Thanks, guys.